How's your day going today?
Day's been good for a Monday.
Yeah.
Honestly, lots happening.
Yeah. Like what?
Well, we have a listing. Listing on Spear Street right now. We've got 4 offers for it. Expecting another one. So that's been exciting. New discovery meeting with a buyer. Out-of-state buyers who are moving back to Vermont to be closer to family.
Wow.
Outside of that, we did some marketing planning with our assistant this year. We're putting together a client appreciation party. It's going to happen at the end of March, and we are rolling out our kind of monthly emails and updates to our past clients and prospects.
That's awesome.
For between that and 1:30.
You've been banging it all out.
That's right.
That's what we like to see. So we're here with John Black of Coldwell Banker, Hickok and Boardman Realty, the Black Brothers team. I've worked with you a lot. We kind of started roughly around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I was September of 2017. When did you officially start?
Technically March of 2018. We got
Okay.
our license and we were hired officially with Hickok and Boardman.
So basically the same time.
Yes.
Because in our worlds, the first 6 months are like nothing.
Yeah.
So we were both
You were
fairly
good.
new.
And you were the first lender to take us out to coffee.
That's
So,
right.
Gold stars.
Coffee is where it's at. So you mentioned in your little recap of the day just now, a discovery meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Explain that to me.
Yeah. So we've been doing this for about 5 years now. And we found that as agents, when you get a phone call that says, hey, saw this house, just want to run out and see it, you don't tend to know a whole lot about each other at that point. You kind of act as a door opener. And we really believe that the process of buying a house really needs to start with building a relationship. So we ran out and opened the door, showed them the house, and then they found out, hey, this is only a 3-bedroom. We need a 4-bedroom. There was no point in seeing that place. So we have discovery meetings with all of our new buyers to learn about them, learn about their search, how we work in the state of Vermont, and then how to help them best win. So this phone call this morning was from an older couple from Florida who are moving back to Vermont to be closer to family. And in the phone call, we unearthed a lot to do with lending as well. And one of the big questions was them getting a loan. So they're selling their house, but it's not enough to cover the new purchase, which as is the case most of the time. And so talking to them about them getting a loan because they're retired. So that's conversation number 1 right now. If they can't get financing for a home, there's really no point in putting in the work for the rest of it. So the discovery meetings to bring up things like that, and then talk to them about agency. Because for us, obviously we work on a per deal basis. There's no hourly. If we put in 6 months of time with someone and they don't buy, no harm, no foul, but we don't get paid for it. So that builds some of the relationship with us, which then really allows us to ask later on for that exclusivity, that relationship that then is put onto paper stating we're your agent for everything and anything, and we have to keep your best interests in mind as well going forward.
So I've had buyers in the past hesitate to sign that document because I think they misunderstand it. I think they think when they sign with a realtor, that's it. They're stuck with that realtor no matter what, and there's no backing out of it ever.
Right.
When my interpretation is that's for their protection.
Right. It's funny thing, like it seems scary, right? Because it's a contract, it says exclusivity, there's a real hard agreement in there, and it does have to be terminated bilaterally. So both parties have to agree to start it and to end it. But it's non-auto renewing. And we always say, look, this needs to be a good fit for both parties. If you're not working with us or you're not that motivated to do it, it's not in our best interest to be tied in as well. But I think you're right. A lot of people look at it and are very hesitant. And honestly, we always say like the discovery meeting, like that's our first date. That's how we're getting to know each other. It might not be a great fit for each other. So we don't ask for that agreement up front. We say, let's see a couple homes together. Let's get a feel where you're at in the market. And if it feels right, then we'll ask for it because it's really the only protection we have. People are allowed to go and shop wherever they want with whoever they want until this agreement is set in place. So we don't ask for it up front. I think it's do your due diligence, interview agents. If you feel like there's a different style out there that fits you better, trust your gut because you're going through a pretty big process and you want to ride that wave with somebody that you like and you trust.
So what's your main criteria personally when you are working with a client, they're hesitant to sign?
Mm-hmm.
Where are you drawing the line of I'm not so sure I want to work with this person?
Yep. Yeah, I think it comes down to trust. So if you feel like they are somebody who's going to work with you, and they want to work with you and they're motivated, that motivation to me is the main criteria. Looking for somebody who isn't coming just to look at homes, they're looking to buy a house. I think on the flip side, the buyer should really feel like their agent's knowledgeable, They have examples, they have history of being able to overcome something challenging, and that they're going to be looking out for their best interest. If those are there, that's really the main thing you're looking for. So that's why we say up front, look, if there's someone if there's a family member, if there's a friend, interview and talk to everyone, because it's better to build that relationship early and stick with it than 2 months down the road flip-flop, But not every time's a perfect fit. There's definitely a handful of situations we haven't been right for someone and vice versa. But I think 98% of the time, we kind of identify that up front in these discovery meetings and really feel each other out.
So really the discovery is kind of you don't want to waste their time and you don't want to waste your own.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if they're taking you out to these houses that aren't what they're looking for, they don't qualify, and for whatever reason they don't like you, like why waste everyone's time? Let's make sure that this is a good fit up front.
Yeah.
And 98% of the time you get it there.
Yep.
So
it's also important because we're asking sellers to clean their house, to leave. They might have kids, they might have animals, they might have to organize their day around showings. And so if we're asking to get into a house, we really have to bring ethically somebody who's willing, ready, and able to purchase a home. So open houses, shopping online, those are great for take your time, right? Do what you want with it. But if you're asking an agent, a listing agent, the sellers, a whole group of people to leave for showing, you really do want to bring in someone who's serious about it.
So tell me a little bit, when you say you want to kind of show that you have the history of providing that service, that comes up in the discovery meeting, what else comes up in that meeting?
Like what are the questions your buyers have?
Yeah, like what's a typical kind of presentation you're taking somebody through?
Yeah.
I'm coming to buy a house.
Yep.
What are we talking about?
Yeah, I mean, first thing up front is like, what's your goal? What are you looking for? Is it to buy this year? Is it to buy next year? Are you looking to get information about the market? And then what's your why? I think that's like the most important piece agents overlook when they get a lead. Who says, I want to go see a home. The first question is, well, why are you buying? Are you moving back to be close to family? Are you upgrading? Are you downsizing? And then sometimes you find people are like, well, I'm just curious. Like, I just want to see what's out there. I don't need to buy, I'm just kind of looking to see what options we have. That's where you're really going to drill down. Like, is this happening, or is this just kind of an interest of theirs? COVID was really, really hard for a lot of buyers, but it really pushed out the tire kickers and brought the ones to the table who were serious about it. So the why is absolutely, the first one on the list. And then there's a million questions from there. It's what's your timeline? Do you have a timeline? What's your criteria for a house? Do you need a full house, a condo, multiple beds and baths? And then outside of that, what are some non-starters? Like we always like to ask, if you see this in a house and it's an absolute zero, we need to know that now. We've driven to homes that are out in Underhill and gotten there. And then as soon as the buyer walks up, they say this doesn't work. I can see the neighbor's house from here. That's something we could identify on Google Maps and no point in driving there. So we want to know those non-starters. And then I think a question most buyers appreciate if they've bought in before is what has your experience been like with other agents, and what's important for an agent to have as criteria? Because to us, we always think like communication's number one. You just stay in touch, offer them information, look out for their best interest, and that's constant communication. But sometimes they're like, I just want quick facts. Like, I'm a busy person, bullet point, send it to me. I want to know that if I'm out of state, you'll do a showing when I'm not there. So always finding out what's important to them is key. And
you'll work with anyone in any personality bucket.
Yeah. I mean, we have it all. Like, there's definitely the analytical type down to the social type, more of the power players who really want everything done their way. And then the people who kind of sit back and like to assess a lot. I think we tend to work with the people who are like at that motivational level and decision makers. We've definitely known people since we started who are still waiting, right? And the market is never going to be perfect. But in the last, 3 years, most towns have seen 40% appreciation in their home value. So had they bought the imperfect home, they would still be up potentially $100,000 on their investment to then buy the home they really want.
So let's shift a little bit into today's market. You get a new buyer. There's always an expectation of timeline. I think that's kind of been up and down a lot over the last few years. Where are we at today? How long is it taking people to find a house that they can actually get an accepted offer on?
That's a definitely good question. We've had people where as soon as we meet them, the next week we're under contract. And this was as recent as the fall, to people who it's really right now we're in some of the lowest inventory we're going to see all year. So I just did a search. I set somebody up for, they were looking to sell their condo and buy a home, and 0 homes popped up in their criteria. So it's February. That's bound to happen when we're looking for a little more narrow criteria. But on average, it's still somewhere in the 90 to about 120 days from the time you meet someone who's active and serious. You know, you can meet with someone and they're kind of like, set me up. If they're actively shopping, we find in like a 30 to 60 day window, we can get them under contract.
Is there a length of time where you cut people off?
That's another good question. We haven't had that in terms of like they're just sitting. If we get the feeling that we're going to show them a lot of houses for several months and nothing's meeting their criteria, we try to have a pretty serious, heart to heart on it, because you have to constantly balance your criteria with what you're willing to give up. We call it the 80-10-10 rule, where you're hoping to get 80%. 10% you're not going to find, and 10% you can change about a property. If you can get that, that's the ideal. But we've shopped with people whose budgets are $3.5 million, looking on the lake or looking for something substantial and still not getting all that criteria. So that's tough.
So do you find that first-time home buyers and the $3 million 10th house home buyers, in general, do they typically have like the same needs, or is there a big difference?
It's definitely the earlier buyers, I think, have a little bit more like, I would say early on and reasonable expectations, right? They're not buying the forever home. They don't need everything in it. As you've bought maybe 3 or 4 houses, you start to really narrow down things that you absolutely are not going to live with. So as far down as like, I want a gas stove just so I can cook with open flame, right? That's not a criteria for your first time home buyer who's like, I just want an investment. I want something to stop paying rent. So we tend to find criteria earlier on is a little more open and a little more reasonable. Once you're looking down, $3.5 million, it's like this home could have 80%, but I just don't like this one thing about it, and I've got other options.
Tell you what, the gas burner is definitely our next house. We didn't think about that the first time, but now it's a must.
Right, and this is your second home, right?
We're in our first house,
home, okay.
And we're good. Okay. Obviously gonna buy our second house next time around.
Yeah.
But it's just funny you mentioned the gas burner, because that's exactly our situation. We didn't think about it first.
You never know, right?
Now it's a huge, you got to have it.
Yeah.
So I know you brought some market stats, materials. Anything you want to go over in particular?
Just that I think when we talk to buyers, a lot of it is right now, people are having a hard time getting in because of interest rates, right? They're high. Prices have gone up, like I said, since 2019, around the time we started, 40% up. So we're at a high price, high inventory market, and the demand is still hit or miss. So we always want to talk to buyers about like timing the market's impossible. No one knew COVID was going to happen, but we can tell you that if you look back 20 years, the market has pretty much always gone up. If you bought in 2000, you were better off than buying in 2010, better off than buying in 2020. So buying now is really going to help you when the curve continues to go up, because we're not expecting to see a drop. I think we're still expecting to see moderate increase. And if, let's say, 2 years of moderate increase stack up, maybe then we'll see inventory reach what it should be. But we're at less than 2 months supply of inventory, and a balanced market is 4 to 6 months of inventory. So that's a really big one. I mean, this is a simple supply and demand in real estate, which I love. It's like any buyer out there who is pre-qualified can access any home that's for sale. So there's a pretty true, invisible hand there. But I would say timing it is key, but also looking right now, not being afraid to get in at looking at a condo. Like if this is your first time buying a home, buying a condo is the typical move anyways. And condos right now for Chittenden County are about $350,000. That's the median. If you're buying at $350,000 and then able to sell that in a few years and leverage what you have to buy the home, that's really the goal. So kind of think 2 out. But I would say with inventory low, there's still competition. There's still multiple bidding situations, which is tough, and we totally get. But we're always saying if you can find what you're looking for and you can afford it, you can refinance your interest rate later, right? During COVID, it wasn't interest rates, it was multiple bidding. It was 5-6 offers on every home. Now interest rates might go down in a year, and it could be something else. You're always going to be fighting something as a buyer. So if it works for you and you're ready and you find what you're looking for, the question is always like, are we crazy for putting an offer in on like the first one we see? And it's like, if it works for you and you can afford it, then you shouldn't hold back from trying it. Because people who did that 20 years ago are sitting on maybe $500,000 in equity right now. So,
yep. And the refinance it later, it's the marry the house, date the rate.
That's it.
Corny little one-liner.
Yep, that's it.
It's corny, but it's true.
Yeah,
you can always get rid of the rate later on.
Yep.
So is there like a blanket answer to the question, when is a good time to sell?
Good question. Yeah, I would say we always look at like there's 5 Ds of real estate, the things that are like motivations for you to have to move. They're typically moving as you're growing a family, you got married, or on the other thing, later on in life, you need to downsize for maybe health reasons. It really comes down to like what your timeline is. We always talk about the spring market being a good time because that's when buyers are ready. Honestly, buyers have not stopped being ready for 3 years. If you were to put your house in like we just did last week, middle of February, we're getting 4 offers on it. It's actually beating the competition because everyone lists their home in the summer. So now buyers have multiple options. If you list ahead, like early to mid-March or late March before the spring market picks up, you actually have less competition on you. So typically we would say sellers were selling in the winter because they had to, and sellers in the summer were doing it by choice. These days, because the competition hasn't gone down from the buyer standpoint, I'd say selling it ahead of the spring market where there's less competition is actually in your best interest.
And at the beginning of that, you mentioned the 5 Ds. Mm-hmm. What are the 5 Ds?
So diamonds, divorce, disease, death, and I messed it up. Diapers. It's diapers.
Yeah. Diamonds, you're getting married.
Yep.
Divorce, obviously.
Yep. Disease, death, and diapers.
Death. And what's the disease one?
It's like if you need to sell your house, you need more money or whatever, you got to downsize, you need access closer to a hospital, somebody in the family's going through a hard time. That's the unfortunate part, is not everyone's selling to upgrade in their house, right? They're selling because they've got to take a job out of state or their family's separating. So we always want to be really conscious of like the situation people are going through. I'll never forget our first closing where we helped the sellers, and when we called to say, hey, congratulations, it all worked out, they were actually pretty like reflective on it because it had been in the family for generations, no longer worked for them. They kind of needed finances elsewhere. But yeah, those are pretty big motivational nuggets that put a house on the market.
It is pretty wild, real estate, how it's very numbers heavy, but the emotional side is heavier. Mm-hmm. And people kind of forget that, I think.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah. And it's an interesting dynamic where like a buyer and a seller, if they were face to face, would act completely differently than if they had 2 agents in between them, kind of duking it out. So we're always trying to remind them like, look, the person on the other side isn't, somebody terrible, right? They're also looking out for their own best interest. And so I think always setting expectations and always trying to find a middle ground is really where our negotiations come into play. So
you mentioned having no agents involved. Why is it a good idea to have realtors?
I think
I'm all for it.
Yeah,
I've seen the other side, and I have my own opinions, but I'd like to hear it from you.
As a biased source, as a real estate agent, our job is definitely to educate, because if a seller were to just throw a house on for whatever price they want, they're not prepared for the market. They don't have everything uploaded. When we help our buyers buy a for sale by owner, we're having to go to the towns to track down all the documentation we need. Then we also need to look up, comparable sales in the neighborhood. We need to find out if there's any inspection issues with the homes, any title issues with the home, anything up front before we can even make an offer. That's what a listing agent does. They present the product on the market with all the information, if they're doing the job right, all the information that someone needs to make a educated decision on buying that home. If you just put your house up with a couple of pictures on Zillow, you're missing all of that, then you're not really bringing a ready product to the market. And then I think, agents for the most part get it, that like our job is to help our parties get what they want, right? It's not to interject our own personalities and our own conflict. So a lot of it to me is finding like, look, what works on both sides? Does that work for my party? we have a fiduciary duty that says if this is not in our best interest for our party, then we cannot push this any further. If it means terminating because that's what's best for them, then that's what we're legally obligated to do. But I really think it's just educating so that you're coming to the market with the right numbers, the right information behind it. And then you have somebody who's been through this process on the buyer side, guiding them through it so that they're coming in thinking, I don't know what problems to look for in this house. And an agent who's been through 1,000 houses and say, look, I'm seeing that this is maybe an older septic system. The heating inspection hasn't been done on the heater. Maybe the windows are older. They're able to point out things and say, from the get-go, here's what we should expect, pursue that.
And I will say from my own experience, I have obviously done transactions without realtors involved.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much every one of them had something go wrong along the way, and we had to extend closing, and it was because of this, that, the other thing missed on the property itself or in the inspection, or there wasn't an inspection.
Yep.
So I've definitely seen both sides, and very pro realtor. Again, biased opinion.
Yeah.
Get a lot of business from realtors, but it is much smoother when there are realtors involved.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned you're setting up a client appreciation event.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. So fortunately, we've been in the business now for 5 years. I think we're somewhere at like 130 people that we've helped. And so every year we really want to reach out to them close to 30 times is our goal. We want to have touch points with them, whether it's our Christmas card, client appreciation event, bring them to like the baseball game, to the lake monsters, something that just says, hey, we did a pretty big deal together. We went through something together. And a lot of times then it kind of goes in the back burner and you don't hear from people, and that's fine. But there's some people that we've connected with that are going to be like lifelong friends to us. So for anybody who's worked with us, we want to always be extending out an offer and saying, hey, first drinks on us at Burlington Beer Co. Come on down and join us. We're going to do Vermont trivia. So we always try to do some like interesting stats about the market or what we've seen during COVID. And then in the summertime, we try to do one at the beach somewhere it's family friendly, and one that's a little more adult oriented, just to get the mix. But it's just a thank you. It's just a show up. We also want our past clients to meet each other. We've had a lot of out-of-state buyers move here who are looking to network. They're at home, they're working remotely, and they don't really know the area. So it's a great way to connect people. And I think that's at kind of the core of what I like about real estate, is that it's really bringing together a group. And then when that group is clicking with each other, the work is sort of done, and they're going to stay in touch. They're going to be happier for it because they've made a relationship that matters.
That's awesome. That's huge. People must love that too.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, we do it as just a thank you, and then inevitably someone refers something to us, or somebody's friend is moving into town. It's almost like we're top of mind, but the goal is really just to like stay in touch. We want to barbecue, we want to hang out. If somebody's just had a baby, we want to meet their newborn baby or family or whatever. So nice. Yeah.
All right. So towards the end here, we got a lightning round of questions.
Okay.
And I didn't prep you for these, but they're really going to get you.
Pressure.
Big time. So we're going to fly right through. TV shows or movies?
Movies.
Summer or winter?
Summer.
Tropical or city vacation?
Tropical.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Hamburger or hot dog?
Hot dog.
Best thing to dip fries in?
Ketchup.
Favorite sport to watch?
Soccer.
Favorite sport to play?
Soccer.
Car or truck?
Car.
Cat or dog?
Dog.
Preferred social media?
Instagram.
How can people find you on social?
Black Brothers VT.
Is that Instagram and Facebook?
That's it. Black Brothers VT.
Awesome.
Yeah, or Black Brothers Real Estate Team on Facebook. Black Brothers VT on Instagram.
Do you have a website?
Yes, blackbrothersvt.com.
I see a trend there.
A little bit.
For anyone interested, if you want to reach John, call him at 802-585-5347 or John, John, at hickokandboardman.com, hickokandboardman.com. John, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Have a great one.
You too.